Welcome to the Eric Brady podcast, Series 1, Adolf Hitler, His Bombers and Me. Episode 14, Uncle John Was a Miner. Eric, tell us about the foster father who looked after you when you were evacuated to Wales.
He was a smallish, wiry-looking man, and one day after I'd been there, just a short time, he showed me a miner's pick, and it was a lot smaller than the picks that the workmen had used when they were digging the hole in our garden in London for the shelter, but it was very sharp both ends, and he said that at that point of time, the seam he was carving out was only 3 feet high. And what the mine owners wanted, of course, was the coal. They didn't want people digging out loads of rock above and each side so that they could work out the coal more easily. They were expected to lie on their sides with a 3-foot seam of work and cut away with that. To me, that was appalling. It sounds even worse now. To have to lie on your side in a very low tunnel and be chopping away at coal ahead of you. And of course, you never knew how big the chunks that you were chopping into were actually going to drop down and what was going to fall on top of your head. And of course, there were very many mine accidents that made things so perilous for them. And I said to him, "You must be ever so brave to go under the ground like that and do that." And he tried to laugh it off. "Oh, well, that's what we do." But I still think he and all the other miners really were brave. Many years later, for reasons connected with my job, I was taken down into a mine. But this was nothing like the mine that my foster father had worked in. It was very high. It was about 10 feet above me, actually, that had been carved out in this very long tunnel. And we had a conveyor belt, which, when a shift was going forward, would be taking the miners to the coal face and bringing the earlier shift out. So we rode the conveyor belts that later on, when the shift was actually working, would often have the coal pushed onto that. And so conveyed on this long conveyor belt, whatever distance it was, sometimes it'd be 2 or 3 miles that they followed these coal seams through.
I found a picture from a Second World War mine with a similar system, for carrying the coal at least.
I think they were fantastic, those guys. Still do.
Because coal was so important for keeping the country going, mining was a protected profession, wasn't it? So they didn't have to sign up to be soldiers.
That's right. And as you say, the coal was so essential for the war effort that the miners were actually able to get better paid and also force better working conditions from the point of view of pithead baths and showers. And they certainly deserved all those.
Did you have any contact with your foster family after you got back to London or in the years since?
Not immediately after I got back, but many years later, when I was married, in fact, we had a caravan and went travelling over much of the country. And on one occasion, we went down to South Wales, and I wanted to see Tredegar again. And so we drove up there, and I actually went to where I had been fostered, knocked on the door to see if my foster brother was still there or if whoever was there knew what had happened. And there was no answer. So I knocked on a neighbour's door and they said, "Oh yes, Peter Jones lives there." That was the name of my foster brother. And so presumably he had taken over the house. And they said he was a teacher.
To buy your copy of Adolf Hitler, His Bombers and Me to read alongside the series, go to ericbradybooks.co.uk. The Eric Brady podcast can be found on YouTube, podcast services and at ericbrady.blogspot.com.